everyone, welcome back to the studio for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday. I thought we would do a really fun underwater scene, so be sure to check the description below for the entire paint list, and I'm going to have some supplies listed down there as well with some links for you so you can get to them nice and easily. Let's jump up to the canvas here really quick. I have my standard 18-inch by 24-inch canvas. This is just one canvas that I get in bulk, and I get a bunch of them, and they're really easy because I can store them on all the same shelves. So be sure to play around with different canvas sizes. It'd be really fun to see what you're working with. I'm going to start with a nice little kind of light area on the top and moving towards some of the dark areas and the ocean bed down below. A nice little coral reef. Thought it'd be pretty fun, so let's get going. I've got a nice little brush here, my 1-inch brush, and we're going to start with a little bit of titanium white. Go ahead and load that brush on both sides. Then we're going to grab a little bit of phthalo blue, and we're just going to tap into that a little bit. I really like underwater scenes because you can play around with all kinds of colors and make them lighter or darker just depending on your mood or how deep the water you want it to be or where in the world you are with this ocean. So we're just going to do some long rocking X strokes. Kind of get some movement in there. Going to get a little bit more phthalo blue. And you just wiggle in a little bit here. We'll get a little bit more phthalo blue. We're just going to keep working with this color a tiny bit, getting a little bit darker. Lots of movement. Just getting lots of little ripples in there without even trying. Now let's do a little bit of phthalo blue and a little bit of phthalo green. Just a touch. Just blend them on the brush. Phthalo blue and phthalo green. Maybe a touch more phthalo green actually. Yeah, that's nice. Maybe just a touch more of that same color. I'm going to start on this corner a tiny bit down. That's nice there. Now we'll do a little bit of our Prussian blue now. Phthalo green, Prussian blue. Mixing those on the brush. Maybe we'll do a little bit of midnight black to those colors now. Reload with phthalo green, phthalo blue, Prussian blue. Now midnight black. As we move down on the canvas, we'll flatten out these strokes a little bit more. Just getting a little bit of motion. Motion in the ocean. Makes it believable. There we go. Let's leave that just for now. Pick up a blending brush and start at the top. We're going to just very lightly even it all out. Working our way into the darks. Just softening it and letting all of those little brush strokes just kind of soften together. And you've got nice little motions of waves bouncing in the light. Just going to build on that. Conditioning our canvas, setting it up for ourselves for later. That way we know where our light source is. Boom, there it is. Check that out. Nice and soft, it's far away out here. Here. Get rid of some of those brush strokes. Now, let's go ahead and play around with a little bit of light. I'm going to take my fan brush, go into the titanium white, grab a little bit of that, and we're going to grab a little bit of Indian yellow. A little bit of sunshine color here. A little bit more white. Maybe we'll grab just the tiniest touch of bright red. Almost didn't even get any, but it still counts. Wow, right up here, we're going to pick right where the sun is going to be, kind of just slightly off of center. And we'll just play with this fan brush, moving out. Dancing it around as it's hitting on the ripples of the top of the water. More titanium white now. Just a touch more, maybe. Now, let's pick up our blending brush, wipe it off a little bit, because we do have a good bit of blue on there. And a little trick that I like to do, so I'm actually going to take it down here into my liquid white now that I've wiped it off, just to clean off the brush kind of. I'm picking up some liquid white, getting rid of the blue, just saving paint Or just, not really wasting it as much. Now, we'll wipe that out one more time. And the blue, if we have any left on there, will be a lot lighter, easier to work with. But we don't have to clean it all the way out. Now, let's pull some of these kind of out from the center. And I'm wiping off my brush each time. And we'll just go across them in this other angle. And it'll bring some of those lines a little bit more flat into the ripples of the water. It's a really nice effect. Soft. Then, what I like to do is take that fan brush again, wipe it out. Then we're going to load it back up with our titanium white and Indian yellow one more time. Nice and thick paint again. Lots of paint. We wiggle it down through the paint and then pull it flat. So it's going to bring all the paint to the edge. Now we'll come right up in here to where our light is. And we'll just pull out. We can do two, one on each side. Wipe it out. Reload. Wipe it out, reload. Lots of paint. That one was very yellow. That's okay. Load up the brush. Wipe it off. All right. I think we'll use the sable brush here for a second. One of my favorite tools. Definitely get yourself a set. Oops. Now I'm going to just use this and soften back. It's also going to kind of brighten these because it's going to blend. Just want to make sure you don't pick up too much blue. And if you do, just wipe it off. Let's see if we can get a few more of those. Just wipe out the fan brush, some titanium white again. Let's do a little bit of bright red. And right at the top here, just a little hint of that. Now, big blending brush. Make sure it's a little cleaned off. We'll just kind of bring those back a little bit. And get rid of the brush strokes. And all the way across now. All right, let's work on this bottom area. We're gonna make it nice and dark now. The darkest area, I just wanted to be able to have some of this area to work with just in case we needed some of the titanium or liquid white. We've got all the darks here, all of our blues. We're loading the brush on both sides. Phthalo green, midnight black. And let's grab some alizarin crimson now. Starting from the bottom. And bring that up and into our other color. Same thing on the other side. Big blending brush now. We'll just soften those together. All right, let's build a few distant rocks out here. We're going to take some titanium white on the sable brush. Then we will just use whatever this color is over here. This is just our combo color. It's got a little bit of all of our darks. We just want a little bit of this. We need it to be darker than what we've got on the canvas, but only by the tiniest bit. So let's pick out maybe out here. We've got some distant rocks. Just a little bit more of that color. Now, let's see, maybe we'll do, maybe we want some on this side too. Give ourselves a little bit to work with. Nice and soft today. I love the sable brushes for these underwater scenes for sure. They really help getting everything nice and soft. Now let's use our big blending brush really quick. Just bring this together by tapping. Keeping with the flow of the ocean, with these lines that we've set up, we want to keep working with those. There we go, nice and quiet. Now we need to add a few highlights to these rocks out here. Let's pick up a different sable brush. We've got a dark sable brush. We'll pick up a new one. And we'll go into a little bit of titanium white. And then we'll grab just a touch of that same exact color. Nothing fancy. A little more white, touch of bright red. And let's work with that. Little light gray. And we'll pick out a few little rocks. Just reload. You're going to be picking up darks. Titanium white, and we just go right back into that same pile. We can kind of pull out a few highlights and then pull back a few shadows with the same bit there. Grab some more titanium white. I'm going to wipe that off. I picked up a good bit there. Back into the titanium white. And we'll do just a touch on some of these here. A little bit of bright red. Now we'll just pick up our 2-inch brush again. Tap. Just soften it out a little bit. Yeah, we can do a few little kind of sea urchins or things. Let's grab this is our darker brush, a little bit of the darker color on it, some titanium white. And let's just play with a few. Let's do something like this, a little coral up here. And we'll just get in a few main branches here and come and work with a few smaller ones after. There we go. maybe let's grab some crimson. Maybe we'll have a different kind of sea urchin-y thing. Coral piece here. Not an urchin. This is coral. Just kind of wiggle out something there. A little crimson. Maybe just something small. I like to do some little sea grasses or seaweeds. Those are always really fun. I'm going to pick up a script liner. Just keep working with that same color. It's a little bit of white and our darkest mixture. Maybe some down here. Now we'll do a little bit of highlighting on a few of these things here. Let's start on some of these darker reds. We'll grab a little bit of titanium white just on the script liner here. A little titanium white, a little crimson, and some bright red. This is a different script liner than the other one I was just using. I have two. Now we're just going to use a little bit of this to kind of whisper in some highlights, and then we're going to soften them back. Just reload, kind of cleans up the paint on the edge. Now we'll do a little bit of, let's just do some light blue, titanium white in this blue mixture. Now we can just kind of give an idea of these having a nice wiry kind of connection that would kind of crisscross a lot and makes this really cool pattern, but we're just giving an impression of it, just an idea in our painting today. Nice. Now a little bit of Indian yellow. Get a little bit of our blue so we can make a little bit of a green, just a little hint. Maybe just a few more right around here. We pick up a little bit of the paint and you can twirl these around. It really will move those and make them a little wider, the dark, and they look very cool once it's all dry. Now, big blending brush. Soften. add a layer to that. We are going to get some more dark. All of our darks, less of the white this time. We'll just bring some of this dark down. Maybe add a touch here. Let's do something over here. We're gonna grab kind of our same colors, maybe a touch of titanium white again. Let's do something like these in the background. A little bit extra dark, just kind of a few blips on the front here. Big blending brush. We can do a touch of highlight to that just by adding some titanium white. We'll go into a little of this reddish white. Not too much detail, far away. We just want some ideas. Now a little bit closer. Just a touch here. We'll put it on a rock again. Bring it down. Urchins and corals living on these rocks. We'll just get a little bit of the dark on the fan brush. And we'll build some little areas here. Maybe a touch of crimson. Nice. Now we can get our sable brush that we were using our highlights with. We'll grab just a touch of titanium white, maybe a little bit of red, soften that out, and we're going to put on some highlights on these rocks right out here. A little bit more. Just soften those back a little bit. I think we'll add just a touch of Indian yellow, maybe a little bit of like a greenish color. We'll get some phthalo green and Indian yellow, titanium white, kind of like some algae or, I don't know, something else, something more green, but not bad, growing out here. I think more green. A touch of red, just is a little too sharp. And the red will kind of dull it a tiny bit for us. Maybe a few more little now blending brush. And we just want to soften all of it, barely touching it. We'll leave that. Some highlights on some of these. I've got my fan brush that I was using lights in. I'm going to go into the tiniest bit of liquid white. Just want to make my life easier and make sure this is going to stick. And I think let's do some really bright yellow corals out here. A touch of red though, just a touch. And back to the liquid white, medium thickness. And let's pop in a few maybe we'll have some really small little reddish pink corals kind of just pushing into the background. Little crimson, a little bright red, medium thickness. They're just growing. Now we'll soften that back with our big blending brush again. We're always going to be softening everything. And that means it's always going to be blending with the bottom color that you have on there. Something to think about. That's why we're making all these highlights so bright, because we're going to come back and just let them sink into the ocean. Just barely. All right, now I think we'll do something fun, something big. Let's go right into our alizarin crimson and bright red on this medium-sized sable brush. Medium small. This is one of my flat sable brushes. It works. They all work. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want. We're going to put in a nice coral here. He's attached himself to a rock in a couple areas, and we'll kind of anchor him in there. And we're going to start, make sure we use good bits of crimson, get a nice rich base here. The red will help it to stand out if you have issues of it showing up. There we go. All right, now soften out some of these with the brush. I just wiped off a little bit of paint. I'm going to soften them out on the edges. Bring some of this, a few more layers. Now we'll use our script liner. Let's get the one we had some more dark colors in it. We'll just wipe it out. And we'll go into those same colors, crimson and bright red. And we want to pick out a few more areas to stand out here. You can spend so long doing all kinds of little arms, and I think it's really fun just to play with this script liner and just wiggle this around and let it all kind of happen. It gives the impression, it gives you the idea, and the mind will just fill the rest in. And you'll be like, yeah, I have seen that before. I do know what that is. A little bit of red. Then we can come in and just connect a few of them if you want to. Now, need some highlight on there. I'm going to soften a few of these out just a touch. We've got a lot of paint layered up, and I want it to be nice and even here. Soft. Just in those heavy areas. Now, script liner. We'll go into, how about some of this color here? We've got just a little bit of bright red and alizarin crimson already kind of thinned down with some liquid white. We'll start with that. And on the tips of some of these here, they're going to get a little bit of highlight. Just think about where the sun might be hitting as it's bouncing through. Wiggle the end of that script liner. On the arms and the base here. Maybe a little bit on the top, just a tiny bit more. Just like pretty much everything else that we've painted so far, we're going to come up to this and tap. Tap. Kind of like clouds. You almost want to get them moving just a tiny bit, ever so slightly. Now, let's do a little bit over here. I think we will take our sable brush and go into some titanium white. And a little bit of red. I've got a tiny bit of blue still in this. Right down this. We'll have a big rock. A little bit more paint. And maybe we can even just do a touch. We'll do some titanium white, a little bit of Indian yellow. And we'll pull out a tiny bit of sand way back here, just a tiny bit. Maybe a little bit of red. Let's do some slightly lighter corals right in this area. Maybe something medium size. We'll go into the bright red and dark sienna, touch of our blues, titanium white. And let's see. Now on the tops, script liner, liquid white, titanium white, touch of bright red. Tap. Nice. Now let's take our fan brush with the dark on it, good bit of dark, and we'll just put in some kind of different little things living kind of just on the rocks, some textures. There'll be kind of some greens and blues, all kinds of variety things living out here. Little crimson. We'll soften some of that back. A little bit on this side as well. Same colors, alizarin crimson, phthalo green, phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black. Now we'll use our sable brush with the dark. And then we'll just add a few more rigid rocks in here, popping through. Same thing on the other side. big blending brush. Let's use our sable brush. We're going to go into a little bit of phthalo green, phthalo blue, and we'll put in a little bit more seaweed right out here. Kind of right over the top of all of this stuff. Maybe we'll add some highlights to that. Let's use our script liner, titanium white and Indian yellow. Almost threw it, but I caught it. That was a good catch throw. I threw it to myself. And we'll get all the tips of these. Oh, they're really yellow today. It must just be a beaming light. So strong and pretty. A little bit more. And maybe we'll do a few of these. In a couple other areas. Bit of, I'm thinking we'll do a little bit of yellows. Indian yellow, liquid white. Maybe some of these up in here. There's some really cool types of coral growths that are like these little fan type pieces, and I like to see those. They're fun. What perfect tool to put them in than a fan brush. Purpley pink, we'll get some crimson, liquid white. That's really nice. Almost exactly what I was hoping for. Fun when that works. I'll add some of these in here. Fun. We'll leave that for right now. How about, let's do liquid white, bright red, touch of Indian yellow, and let's stop there, wipe that out, and I'm going to get my big blending brush and soften it. We'll go into a little bit of crimson and our base color. We're going for a purple, touch of bright red. Get some harmony into that. There we are. Now, right over here, I think something, a small one. All of these underwater things that are growing, they all are going to be like little bushes and stuff like we see everywhere else, where they come into kind of a central growing area. Now let's put some highlights on that. Really clean out the brush. Now we need our lavender color again and some whites. We've got one kind of mixed up already here for us. So we'll just go right into that medium thickness. Oh, I think I want this to be a little bit brighter, a little more crimson. Very simple. Tap. Now we will do a dolphin. Let's use this sable brush. We'll get some darks. Now, we're going to have our dolphin right out here, kind of just playing. We're going to make him nice and easy. We've got his body here. A fin, tail. Got the top. And the other side. Now to bring it together, and right past there, we will have one in front and one behind. Now with the sable brush, we're just going to work on filling this dark in and making sure we like our shape here. Our darkest areas will all be on the bottom. And on the backs. Okay, now I just wiped out my sable brush a little bit, and we're going to play with our darks and lights again. Let's go into some blues, all of our blues and black. And we're going to find all of our darkest areas here. Okay, wipe off that brush. And we'll soften. Now we'll give it a little bit of shape. Wipe out our brush again. Make sure it's good and clean. Okay, now we're going to get 2 script liners going. One with a highlight and one with a shadow. And we just use our darkest dark right now. And some titanium white. Which should yield us a nice light blue color. We need a little bit of liquid white. Bit more here. Now, let's do a little bit of highlight. Liquid white. And we need a bright red white, not too much red, just kind of a pink. Liquid white. Preload. A little bit more. Now a little bit darker, just a tiny bit more crimson to it. Now let's pick up a sable brush. I'm going to get a bigger one that I have here. Works really well for softening everything out. And we'll start in our light areas and tap. Go right up to that edge. Kind of hard to get this. Okay, now let's get our blue liquid white, titanium white, and our blues back on that script liner. And we're going to finish off a few of these details here. I need a little bit of dark in there for his mouth, so I'm going to get my other script liner and go into just all of my darks really quick. Now with our blue, this is kind of our more shadowy color. Now we'll just soften that back a little bit. Bit more of our shadow color. just tickle in a few more water movements on this dolphin back here. Now all we need is a little eye, just an idea of some light happening. Just soften it back. Just need a little bit of blue, white and medium blue. Right underneath this dark line here. A little bit lighter. I like that. I think we can do a few little more ideas of some water just bouncing and light bouncing off of this one here. Tap. That's it. Let's leave that. I lied. I see one more thing. A little bit more highlight. Liquid white, titanium white, a little bit of pink. On these rocks down here, I'm going to add some texture with my palette knife now. A little bit of blues and whites marbled. Something very, very simple. A little bit of paint on the knife, and we just drag that on. A little bit more mixed up here, I think. Now we'll just pull back a tiny bit of a shadow on these. And right on top, we're going to put a little bit of that fun kind of green color, phthalo green and Indian yellow. Let's paint some fishes, fishes. I'm going to use my little sable brush again. Great tool. I'll clean that off and mix up a little bit of an orange here. Bright red and Indian yellow. And maybe a We'll just get some little ideas of some fishies out here. Titanium white, Indian yellow. Got a little bit too much green. There we go. We'll start over. Indian yellow, bright red. Now let's take our script liner and we'll make a nice yellow, pretty bright, titanium white and Indian yellow. And we'll just pick out a few fun little details on these fish out here. A little bit more paint, just clean it up so it's nice and fresh. We'll add just a touch of orange back into them with this nice thick mixture. A little too light there. I guess I forgot these ones over here. Now we need just a little hint of an idea. A tiny bit of dark around where they might have some eyeballs. We don't want these fishies getting lost out here. And maybe a little mouth. Just tip your brush with some dark. Okay, we've got some cute little fishies. Let's do some more rocks over here. I'm gonna pull out a good bit of phthalo green, phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black, right there. And we'll get some crimson. Nice big pile of all of our darks. Okay, now we'll use that. And build us some rocks out here. How about some flat stuff up here? Into a little bouldery section here. We'll just use our knife to kind of smoosh that paint around over here. Kind of an awkward space there. Lighter color, got a little bit of yellow, some pinks here. It's kind of what I wanted to work with, was more of these pinks for a little while. Just smush that in there, marble it, and let's start way out here. Maybe a little bit more red in it. Now let's go into some blue, titanium white, and just our mixture that we use to make our rocks, and some white. Mix that in. We've got nice blue to work with for the remainder of these rocks that are kind of shadowed and shielded by the light back here. They're still getting lots of reflections on them. Awesome. Now we're just going to pull down some backs to some of these where we need them. The colors. Let's do the dark first down here. I'm going to get into some of this rock mixture. And we'll work up a little bit of kind of a sandy area maybe here. Throw in a few more fun little corals and things in betweens. Throw in the dark first, and we'll come back with some highlights. Yeah, we'll start with some titanium white, Indian yellow, and a little bit of dark sienna. Nice kind of golden brown. Little bit of that Indian yellow. Let it mix. Now we've got a cool green. Works perfect over here in some of our shadow areas. Keep working with that. We'll add some titanium white and some crimson. Now we'll wipe it off. Liquid white. Let's do some bright red now. And out here, we'll do a little bit of purple. Go into our crimsons. We'll add a little liquid white. On the fan brush, go back into some type of reds. And we'll just put a little bit of color kind of into this sand down here. Get a little yellow. Just a touch more light just right here. Tiny bit. Let's do a little bit of light green on the script liner. We'll go into a liquid white Indian yellow, phthalo green, throw in a few more grasses or seaweed type. Maybe a few of those on this other side, just a little darker. I've got this cute little turtle right here in an image. That's what I'm going to paint. Now I'm going to pick up all of my darks that we were using. And we'll pick out this center line of our turtle. And let's have him come in kind of, he's coming up right out here. Yeah, we'll have him right here. Now, we need to create a little head for him. He's got some eyes kind of on the back. A little shell. Some little leggies. And some fins. We're going to start everything much smaller than the end result that we're aiming for. We're just putting in our darks. And we've got all of this big dark mixture over here. I'm going to add a little bit of Van Dyke brown to it, just a touch. Now, let's get his fins going here a little better. Just tap. Dark sienna. We've already got a color mixed up here. Let's use that same one. Add a touch of Van Dyke brown, tiny bit. Now we need to create a little bit of our browns here for our turtle shell. So we'll just add a little bit in here, kind of build. A little bit more titanium white. Let's make a blue-gray. We can just use the same color that was already on the brush. We wiped it out a tiny bit, but not too much. Now we've got our two colors side by side, a little bit more to the red side and a little bit more to the blue side. Let's make that into a fine edge here. Now I'm going to pick up my script liner and go into my dark mixture with some Van Dyke brown in it. Much more Van Dyke brown. And we're going to put in a few more dark areas here on our turtle. Got a nice neck area. Kind of bring that dark up a little bit. And let's see if we can't bring a little bit this design and pattern on his belly here of the shell. A little bit of Van Dyke brown and dark sienna now. Van Dyke brown. Just bring that together now. Okay. Now I need to pick up my sable brush, wipe out the script liner, wipe out the sable brush, and we'll just blend this a little bit, softening. Now, a little bit more dark. We need some phthalo green, blue, and our brown. Hey, I found the other one, the little one. That's the big one. Funny stuff. Now, I'm going to bring this dark right in front of that arm there. There it is. A little bit more dark on these edges here. Okay, now clean out the script liner. And we're going to work with a little bit of our greens. We're going to use this darker green first. A little bit of lightness to that. Now, we will add a little lightness to it, step by step. A light green to the blue side, so we have phthalo green and phthalo blue. Okay, now we need a little bit of yellow and red. We'll get some Indian yellow just on the script liner, and then we're going to go over here into our dark sienna mixture. Now it's just a touch lighter. And we're going to put on the top of the shell. wipe out the script liner. A little bit of titanium white, liquid white, bright red. Back into our dark sienna mixture. That's nice. Now we're just playing with our colors back and forth, trying to get this look here. I'm going to use a little bit of the blue again. We're going to go into this blue gray that we mixed up with the Van Dyke brown and blue. We're going to add a little bit of yellow to it. Now, we're going to hit on all of our little squares here. And with our sable brush, we'll soften them a little bit. Now we'll mix up just a touch more of this blue color, Van Dyke brown in our color, main blue. Let's darken it just a touch. Liquid white. Right on that inside edge of shadow, we can just reapply a little bit of dark and go back into our yellows and sienna and red. Liquid white, Indian yellow, dark sienna. Oh, it looks like we still had some blue in there. That's okay. Okay, now that's very pigmented. I don't want it that bright. I want it a little more to the white. Highlights. It's not quite bright enough. We'll just wipe that out. Get a little more liquid white and Indian yellow. Now some liquid white and our light green again, very bright on this, a bright little bit on our shadows of greens really make them pop. Now we'll do a little bit of a highlight right here on this edge. We need liquid white and some of our dark sienna mixture here with reds. And we want a nice bumpy edge here with the highlight on there. Kind of tricky. Be right here. Now some blue. Liquid white and blue. Just a touch of pop on there. We can soften that back. Soften it with our sable brush. Kind of just are going to tap on a few areas. Super cute. Little bubbles. I like doing little bubbles. Let's use, we'll just use our script liner. That'll be easier. And put a little paper towel on the end. And give ourselves some ideas for some bubbles. Find a new spot on this towel. Maybe we'll do a couple. like that. Now, around these bubbles, we are going to start with a little bit of medium blue and liquid white. A little bit lighter. Few more, then we'll take some really small few more by the turtle. Now, a few of these will make soften on the bottom. Just kind of take your brush and give it a little scoop. Now, liquid white and our pinks, a little bit of red, nice bright color. And they'll all get their own individual highlight. Maybe just a few more little tiny ones. Now just a little more on this highlight. I see it right here. Tap. And maybe just a touch on this, a little lighter. I like it. I think this dolphin needs just a touch of bright, get a lot of liquid white, a little bit of red, just right on the top where we'll have the sunbeams here. Wipe that out a little bit. Sable brush. Awesome. I'm gonna sign it. I'll just get some of my brush wash and some bright red here. And I'm going to sign it down in the sand. All right, everyone. This is my finished underwater painting scene. I had a blast painting this with you. I really hope you give this a go. Send me an email if you do, Kaylee at KayleeRakowski.com. I would love to hear from you, and just pop a little hello in there, and I'll respond to you, and we can have a chat about what you're painting and what you like and what you don't like about oil painting. Who knows? I don't know. We could spark up a conversation. Kaylee at KayleeRakowski.com. Thank you so much for joining me here in the studio for this week's episode of Tutorial Tuesday. This was episode 94, and we will be back again at 5 o'clock next week, Tuesday nights, for Tutorial Tuesday. Smile and be happy, friends.